Going to be talking about a country known as Syria. So this country you're seeing right now, this is Syria. But why did they even get in a civil war in the first place? To understand why, we need to go back in 2011. You see, at the time, Syria was having protests a lot in their country, as many people hated the regime and the dictatorship under Bashar al-Assad, which caused a rebellion. This rebellion would be known as the Syrian Revolution, fighting against the Assad regime. This would also inspire the Kurds. And after this happened, the Kurds also revolted against the regime. However, when I show this type of map, you might think it looked like that in the first place. But actually, no, it did not look like that. You see, first off, the Kurds were so small, they only controlled parts of the Syrian-Turkish border, while the Syrian rebels were so strong, they conquered almost the entirety of the northeastern Syrian state. At first, it seemed like they would win. However, then the ISIS came, a brutal militia that would cause thousands of deaths in Syria and Iraq. This terrorist group was so brutal, it was almost as worse as the Assad regime, and this only destroyed the rebels' chance of defeating the Assad regime. And when the ISIS grew stronger, they took almost the entirety of Syria. I mean, yeah, they were also an enemy of the Assad regime, but I'm just saying they were as worse as the Assad regime. However, then both the rebels and the government fought against the ISIS along with the rebels, weakening them every year, thus eventually causing their downfall. But yet, tensions again exploded, as then at the time, Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, was backed by his ally, Russia, who was allying his regime. They sent weapons to destroy the rebels. To destroy the rebels. To destroy the rebels, and aided the Assad regime against them. At first, it seemed like the Assad regime was never going to be overthrown, but then Russia also had a war against Ukraine, which distracted the Assad regime and gave the rebels an opportunity to strike. The rebels then went on government bases, and after years of under the rule of Assad, they conquered the capital, Damascus, thus ending the regime. However, despite this, the remaining of the Assad regime remained in the Alawite, who are still fighting against the new government to this day. And what are the reasons? Well, it's most likely because they used to be allies of the Assad regime, in that they believed that the new Sunni-led government was going to slaughter all of them, which they would. As then the Assad regime was defeated, the question is, what would happen then next in Syria? After this happened, the rebels took over the entirety of the country, Syria, and established a new government. However, this still angered the remaining of the Assad regime, and the ISIS had gotten so weak that they eventually fell, while the Kurds were then instead incorporated to the Syrian state. Then, to this day, tensions against the Assad regime continue, and also What I forgot to mention in this video is that the US and Israel also killed thousands of Palestinians and Syrians during the war, and were mostly friendly to the Assad regime. And as the Assad regime remain like this, to this day, the country of Syria still has problems with itself. But let's hope the country stabilizes.